everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Kira, and today we're going to be doing my February reading wrap up and updating my reading journal spread. So I had a pretty good month. In total, I read 5 books, but I DNF'd 2, and I'm in the middle of, I think, 3 or 4 others, or close to the end. I really struggled in the middle of the month. I had a really strong start. I did my Valentine's reading vlog, and I read some romantasy and cozy fantasy, and I had such a good time. They were all really great books, and then I went into a bit of a slump when my family got sick, and then I had some family come to visit. So my whole reading schedule got a little messed up until the end of the month. Not that I'm upset. I love you, Dad. I was so excited to have you visit. But towards the end of the month, I was a little off. When I'm not taking care of my kids, I am trying to sleep so I can get better. So I was actually surprised with the amount of reading I got done, especially since it's a shorter month. But I wanted to go over them and kind of why I DNF'd some, what I'm in the middle of, and my thoughts on the ones that I did finish. Because what I did finish were really awesome. I had a really great month, and it inspired me towards the end of the month especially. I started getting back into a role, and now it's March 2nd when I'm filming this. I am already close to done with 2 books in the month of March, so I think it will be a strong reading month in March, but still, I'm happy. I read a mix between cozy fantasy, cozy mystery, some adult fantasy, and then I started getting into some sci-fi towards the end of the month again. So I will just dive into that. I will try to break them up in chapters, but just because I read so few, YouTube kind of does something odd when you have small, really short time categories, so we will see. I think I will start with, though, the books that I did DNF. So the first one was a pick that I had wrapped. I had wrapped these books, and so for the first 2 months, I have DNF'd both of them. So I guess there was a reason that I have not picked them up. I'm still interested in the rest of them. I took a break, and I'm probably not going to do that for March. Just maybe I'll do one video trying to read them. But it was The Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson. I have liked Maureen Johnson's other writing, but I think it was done later than this one. I read her middle grade one, and this isn't really middle grade. I think it's more YA. I just didn't drive with it. I think I got 30% of the way in. Yeah, I don't know. It just really didn't spark my interest. I just was kind of bored with it. And then just the teenage aspect, I've just decided YA is just really hard for me. And so I did try to give it a shot. I think if you like YA and mystery thriller, kind of Jack the Ripper sort of stories, you would probably like this one. And the second book that I DNF'd, which is kind of a really big bummer for me, I really need to get it back to the library though, is The Sword Defiant by Gareth Hanran. So I have had this on hold for a while, and so it popped up this month, which is why it wasn't on my February TBR video, but I thought it sounded really great. So basically this book, it sparked my interest because it's about heroes after they've done their big quest, and they're called up again to be heroes, but they're these legendary heroes, and they've become leaders and villains in their own right, and what they defeated before seems to be coming back. And so that was really intriguing for me, and I've been eyeing it for a long time. I put it on hold in my library, so again, it popped up. So I was really excited to dive into it, but yeah, it just really did not grab me. And it's such a, it's a thick book, not compared to The Way of Kings or something, but it just, yeah, none of the characters were interesting to me. Sorry, it just did not grab me. And later on in the month, I did read an adult fantasy book right after this, and I even started another one, and their characters were a lot more interested to me right away, and I had no desire to pick this book up. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna DNF that, but it's not for me. Some people might like it. The main character kind of gave me Geralt of Rivia vibes, just not quite as cool. Sorry. So those are the books that I DNF'd. I don't typically have that many DNFs in a month, but I have a lot of books. Life's too short to keep reading a book that you're not really enjoying. And I think that kind of put me in a book slump a little bit, since I was forcing myself with both of them. So just note to self, don't do that next month. But for the books that I did read and enjoy, I'm going to start with my cozy fantasy and romantasy reviews. So if you did watch my Valentine's Day vlog, I did talk about these a little bit, but I'm just gonna do a little bit more of an in-depth review now. The first being That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human by Kimberly Lemming. This book I have wanted to read for a while. There's some novellas still in the Mean Mishap series that I need to read, but the main novels that she has so far, this was the last one. And was very excited to see Dante's love story. I have to say, I still like the second book, The Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf, the best. It was hilarious, and I loved Bree's character because she was just like this absolute like book nerd. She speaks to the book girly. I really liked Cherry in this one, and I didn't piece it together, like the characters and you know who they were for a little bit. So I was very excited for this, and I just think they're great. I think that her female characters are always real funny and spunky. They don't like wait around for people to come and save them, but they kind of like bumble into like helping people and saving themselves, or then helping their, you know, significant other, and their significant other is just super, you know, loving it that they're just like that, but they still, you know, they just have a really great relationship, and they're always like happy endings in my opinion. This one, it's longer than the others, and I feel like it didn't have more of an antagonist like the others two had. And so I think that was, it kept it a little, not as interesting as the other books, but I still thought it was a really solid read, and I recommend the Mean Mishap series to everyone. I think it's really great on the fantasy elements. There is a little bit of violence sometimes, but it's not super heavy on spice. As I've said previously, I don't read as many romance books as I used to. When I do read romance novels right now, I just don't want like a ton of spice. I like a moderate amount. So this works for me right now. I think even if you like a lot of spice in your books, you would find this series hilarious. And the next one that I will really recommend to everyone is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. So this is by Heather Fawcett. It's the second book in the Emily Wilde series, and I read the first one in January, and I just read the second one. I have the third one that I'll be reading in March. So obviously I like the series. I think Emily Wilde is really wonderful as somebody that's a nerd and not just like really likes encyclopedias and researching things. How she goes about figuring out problems in these books just really is wonderful. She's very methodical, very smart, she knows what she's doing, and she takes pride in her work. I just really love her character, and I like Wendell's character. And in this one, she added a couple of others, Ariadne and Dr. Rose, and they're in a different location than the first one. So I think the first one is very good for winter, but this one kind of gets into, I think it is kind of spring-like. They're in kind of like Swiss Alps, Bavarian town almost, so there's different fae in the area. And I really like how she mixes in folklore and how the importance of the local stories comes in, and how she researches things and figures it out. And the antagonist in this one is always really great. I really liked I can't give it away, towards the end something happens, and I really liked where she ends up and how it goes. And it's just so well done and clever. I know a lot of people don't like the second book as much as the first. It's just different from the first, and I think that's a good thing because it keeps, you know, like variety in the books and the stories that she's telling. And the third one is definitely going to be much different. I will say, don't read the synopsis of any of the next two books until you've read the one before it, because it kind of does give things away and what happens. I made the mistake of reading the third book synopsis before I finished this, and so it kind of gave something away for me. So just don't do that. But I gave this one, I think, like a 4, like almost a 5 stars. And I really loved the first one, and it was a solid 5 stars. And this one, I wanted actually a little bit more of the romance element, because I think it would have really been fun. I really love this story. I am going to be reading the third one very shortly. So and another book that I read that I absolutely adored was A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. This was surprising for me. I thought I would like it, but the premise sounded a little silly at first. But where this book turns towards the end and what happens was just like epic and wonderful. It's so clever. The whole premise of the story is that our main character Mona has a small wizarding ability. There are, you know, city-states, and each one has people that can do magic, but they can only do like one thing. And then there's these really powerful war wizards, which you don't really see that much. And then there's the small ones, which they call the small wizards. And Mona's one of them. And what she can do is work with bread. So she can tell it, you don't want to be stale or you want to be really tasty. And she works in a bakery with her aunt. She accidentally made this sourdough starter come alive and get a little bit, it can be a little bit feisty, named Bob. So the premise of that sounds a little crazy, like how can you make this an interesting book? But it was so well done. Once I got really started, it just took a turn. And you know, I'm like halfway through the book and I'm like, well, that's the climax. What's gonna happen? And it just got crazy and so clever. So clever. And I just really wish that she does another in the series because I would love to see what Mona can do. But the whole story follows a murder that happens and somebody that has abilities like her and trying to figure out what happened. I cannot give things away in this. I think you just really need to read it. Despite it being a middle grade, I would say it's a little bit more scary. There's obviously a murder in it that doesn't always happen in middle grade. I would say T. Kingfisher sometimes can be a little bit like cozy horror. Maybe not in this book, it's more cozy fantasy, but there are some moments that I would consider a little bit more intense. But I think a lot of people would like this book. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I think she has some other books in this series, Minor Mage and Illumination, and they look like similar covers, so I'm hoping that's in the series, but there are different characters. So I don't know. She kind of just writes all over the place. She writes what she feels like, and I appreciate that. I've read some of her adult horror books, but T. Kingfisher is definitely going to be someone that I keep reading. Sorry, I am still getting my voice back from being sick, so I will be drinking coffee throughout this. So one of the last books of the month I finished is in cozy, but it's cozy mystery, so I'm just gonna put it right here. And that is Meet Your Baker by Ellie Alexander. It's the first in the Bake Shop Mystery series. There's 21 books in this. I read her secret bookcase mysteries, you know, throughout the beginning of the year, and I loved them. So I really wanted to read this. I got it on Pango from Liv's Library, who's a booktube creator that I absolutely love. And I didn't realize when I ordered it that it was from her for a second, and then I kind of like fangirled out a little bit. But anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I think that it's really different. You know, I love the cozies that have food involved. Someone suggested I do a video where I just recreate some of these recipes, and I think I might because it's just fun and I would like to bake, so we'll see. But our main character, Juliet, used to work on a cruise ship as a pastry chef. Something happens with her relationship and she comes home to just kind of recalibrate, figure out what she wants to do with her life. And her mom and family owns this shop called Tort, and it's just really like well known. It's a small town that's really well known for like theater and acting and just being like a really creative hotspot, which is different than her secret bookcase, which is more of like a murder mystery town kind of. But I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Just her relationship with her mother and this shop and trying to keep it going, and her, you know, reacquainting herself with her town and her roots and all the memories there was really, really lovely. But I also thought the murder investigation was done really well. It was a little bit twisty-turny for me. I kind of pegged who it was towards the end, but she does a really good job at changing my mind, so I enjoy it. It kept me going the whole time. And I very much want to read the rest, to the point where I broke down and did break my book buying ban, and I bought the next two. I just have fun with cozy mysteries between all of my other books. They're becoming such a comfort genre for me, so I just want to make sure that I have quite a few on hand to read. So going on to my next book, which is kind of in a category of itself. If you watched my TBR from March that I posted like a day or two ago, I talked about how I'm going to be getting into a lot more adult fantasy, even though I'm still definitely reading my cozy mysteries, cozy fantasies and everything. I have wanted to start some adult fantasy books, so I went ahead and picked one up, and I'm going to be doing a video where I'm only reading these books, so I will probably be talking about this one for sure. but it is Malice by John Gwynne. It is a thick book, but man alive did I just inhale this book. This one is an easy 5 stars for me, and it is by far my favorite read of the month. It's definitely my top pick. This is the first in the Faithful and the Fallen series, and I've been intimidated to read it a little bit just because of how big it is, and fantasy series can be incredibly overwhelming sometimes in terms of world building, names, magic systems. You know, some of them can read like history novels, which I like, but you have to be in a certain mind frame for them. Again, I've been worried about this one. However, so many booktubers that I really enjoy watching have recommended this as one of their favorite fantasy series of all time, and I understand why. I started this book, and there's like 4 or 5 characters that you follow throughout this entire book, and it's easy, in my opinion, to follow them. This one is an extremely accessible, like, adult fantasy book to read. The world is rich, and he does a really great job at, you know, forming the culture, and I think definitely as the rest of the books go on, it'll be a really natural progression as you learn more about how everything goes. There's humans, there's giants, and there was this war called, and these gods destroyed the earth in something called the Scourging, and things are starting to come about. There's prophecy going around, the Black Sun, and then someone's going to like save them. Throughout the story, you can kind of figure out who's going to be who. I can see why it's called The Faithful and the Fallen. I think it was really well done, and I really actually loved all of the characters, even though they're very flawed. And so I am so excited to see how this goes. As I said, I'm reading a lot of other fantasy novels, so I'm starting the first in a series, but this one is going to be really hard for me not to just pick up the next one. I have book 2, Valor, on my shelves, and it's just, yeah. I think that this one is a really great fantasy novel to go into, because it is not like Game of Thrones where there's like a million POVs to follow. And a lot of history and world building behind it. He just does a really great job at getting a lot of information to you without being overwhelming, in my opinion. So yeah, I really want to continue this one, and it's just really great writing, really great writing. I'd be surprised if this doesn't become one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, as long as he doesn't mess it up at the end. But I have not heard that from anyone. So those are the books I finished. I am in the middle of 3 other books. So I am finishing up Network Effect. I am about 70% of the way through Network Effect by Martha Wells, my Murderbot book 4. I will be finishing that in the next day or 2 probably. I still love the series. So I will be finishing that one. So I also started Rage of Dragons. I'm really not that far into it. I started it, and then I was like hopping around, and I picked up Malice, and then I just couldn't put it down. So this one is definitely more violent, a lot more action in this book than other books. And this month I just was not able to like focus on it. My mind felt a little like sluggish at some point. Malice was actually easier to follow with certain things. So I'm going to finish this one this month. This is on part of my, you know, fantasy books to read. So should be done. And I am also almost done with The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Fueco. I really need to get this back to the library soon. I started it, and then we got sick, and I just haven't picked it up since then. But I was actually really liking it. It's YA, but I am enjoying this one quite a bit more just because of the cultural aspect. It's just so different from a lot of the other books. Sorry, it's really shiny because it's the library book that I read. It's a little bit more to digest at the beginning. And I think if I had read Raybearer, it would have been maybe a little bit easier, but I don't think you have to read it. I appreciate that there's a name pronunciation guide, because I think I really like butchered her name. Our main character's name is Sade, and I did not say that right when I was doing my February setup, so sorry about that. But I really just liked the culture, the legends, superstitions that they had around there, and how it kind of informs her opinion or her actions. And I also really liked it when Crocodile's character comes in. I don't really want to give anything away. I should be finished with this, but it's going to be very highly rated, and it makes me excited to read Raybearer. I just really don't hear a lot about that series. So I have to get that soon. This one is definitely, it's something that I can do even though it's YA, like opposed to the other ones. This one does not bother me. She's been through more in her life than a lot of like the characters in other stories are. So she's a little bit more mature and she's a little bit more realistic with how life is. But she still, you know, wants to make something of herself and live a good life. And you really like her and you're really rooting for her character. So I really want this to go well towards the end. So I should let you know in my March wrap up what this is. I should be finishing this soon. So those were the books that I've read or I'm in the middle of reading, ones that I've DNF'd. So now I'm going to go and update my reading journal a little bit. I try to be consistent. I've done some of it already, but I'm going to be doing my yearly spreads and then finishing it out. And then we will come back. So that is my February wrap up. Overall, I think I had a really strong reading month. Despite like a couple of DNFs, I was really happy with what I read. I think that it was really quality reading. I've found some authors that I like, continued authors that I really love as well. So despite the fact that I really wish I had done more of the reading, I'm still really happy with what I did. So let me know if you've read any of these books, what you think, which ones you think I should continue on first, and also, you know, like what you read in February. I always love to hear what you guys read and what you suggest. I've gotten some really great suggestions, and I've been building up my TBR from the comments, so I appreciate that. So also this week, I should be posting my Cozy Spring TBR. I have a lot of books that I'm excited to read this spring, so look for that towards the end of the week. So otherwise, I hope you all have a really wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye!